This popped up on my feed yesterday and I went straight across and signed the petition. Obviously. 859,732 signatures in just under a day. But the most amazing thing about this is, every time I refreshed the page, it was going up between 700 and 1,500 signatures every time I refreshed the page.
The United Kingdom stands at a crucial crossroads, and it all started with a petition. Initially, it was just a simple call for a new election, but it has grown into a much larger movement. This battle will be a fatal blow to Starmer, who will be forced to self-destruct due to the poor decisions he has imposed on the British people. Stay tuned for this shocking development, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any breaking news about British politics. Over 1 million signatures have been gathered, a clear testament to the deep dissatisfaction among the British people. This is not just a number, but a resounding call for a fundamental change in leadership. Frustration is mounting as more people realise that those in power have not only failed to meet expectations, but are also shirking responsibility for the country. What began as a weak voice, a fragile plea, has now evolved into a powerful, relentless movement capable of shaking the very foundations of politics. This movement is not only sending shockwaves through public opinion at home, but is also attracting the attention of leaders and influential figures on the international stage. Clearly, when those who only know how to chant empty slogans, like the Labour Party and Starmer, continue to ignore the will of the people, it's only a matter of time before they are exposed and face widespread criticism.
A petition was made in the UK to call for a general election, and it almost has over 1 million signatures already. The rate that people are signing this thing is absolutely crazy. It's getting about 1,500 signatures a minute. Usually Parliament tends to just ignore these petitions, and they are supposed to hold a debate, but usually no one shows up to those debates. But if this gets a few million signatures, then it could actually have a significant impact. Now, there has already been loads of petitions like this before, but there's never been one that's grown this quickly and got so many signatures so fast.
The question is being asked with growing frustration. Will the government listen before the situation spirals out of control? Over 1 million signatures have been collected in a petition calling for an immediate general election in the UK. What started as a small idea, seemingly a harmless joke, has now exploded into a powerful political movement that cannot be ignored. The public is growing increasingly impatient, no longer able to tolerate what they see as incompetent and irresponsible governance. The prolonged disappointment has turned into anger, driving them to demand change immediately, rather than endure another 4 years under what is perceived as ineffective leadership. The message has been sent loud and clear. The public wants a new election, and they want it to happen now, without waiting another moment.
Looking at it every few minutes, and it's still growing by the minute, by hundreds and thousands of signatures. So this at the very least illustrates that a lot of people are disillusioned with this government, and even Elon Musk jumping in to say this is interesting, that this petition has broken the record, apparently, for the fastest time to reach 100,000 signatures, which was previously held by Justice for George Floyd. So I will watch this with interest, but don't get too excited. There is nothing legally binding about the petition, nothing legally binding about having the debate in Parliament, and even then, nothing legally binding on the government at all.
This petition is not just a number, it is a strong and clear message to the entire country. The people of Britain, who once stayed silent in the face of the government's empty promises, are no longer patient and have decided to stand up. So, what has sparked this wave of disappointment? It is the growing realisation that Keir Starmer has failed to deliver on any of the promises he made. These promises once led many to believe he was the solution to the UK's pressing political issues. But now, after years of waiting in vain, with promises passing by without any concrete action, the public has run out of patience. They are ready for real change. The public is now questioning whether Starmer's leadership is truly what the UK needs, or if it is just an empty facade.
Is this why it's going tonto? He's going to be on it at some point.
I have a
what
feeling,
time is it in America?
I have a feeling if it's not him, it's one of his elves. Or
Someone,
whatever. Somebody
at some point, Musk is going to be on this, and there's all hell's going to break loose. But it's 520,000 now. But this is the thing. It does hold a mirror up to the Labour Party. Yeah. It does make them realise that, you know, teething problems, perhaps,
absolute
but actually, to me, it seems like a government that is so out of step with its people, but worryingly intransigent.
That's the thing. They'll look at this and they'll ignore it. Like, let's look at the migrant crisis as a perfect example. Does anybody remember who Yvette Cooper is? Where has she been? On one of the biggest issues that faces this country, she is nowhere. The left, and as a general rule, will ignore a crisis if they can't fix it by blaming somebody.
Initially, this petition might have been seen as a joke, something people could laugh at for a moment and quickly forget. However, this is far from the case. With over 1 million signatures gathered, it's undeniable that this petition has become a serious issue, a challenge that can no longer be ignored. In fact, the UK is now facing an awakening, having to reflect on itself and the troubling consequences brought about by the failure of politicians, particularly Keir Starmer and the Labour Party.
What we've got here is an optic that's incredibly bad for Sir Keir Starmer and his government at the moment. And I think the court of public opinion, as we call it, is showing the government, look, we're not happy. And to put that figure of 700,000 people into perspective, combined memberships of both the Reform and the Conservative Party have got fewer than 200,000 members. So we just wonder, I mean, I don't think the Lib Dems are calling for, I've got 500,000 members that are signing this petition. So I think there's definitely buyer's remorse out there of people who did.
This petition has become a vivid representation of the growing public dissatisfaction, reflecting the deep anxiety and doubt about the current state of the country. People are asking why the country has been allowed to fall into this state. How could such a petition gain such overwhelming support? What matters is not just the number of signatures, but the fact that the issue is no longer a mere joke. What might have once been seen as small protests has now evolved into a powerful and clear statement of undeniable frustration. The scale of this movement marks a turning point, a moment when the people of the UK are ready to demand a reassessment of their leaders and call for change. The fact that over 1 million people have signed this petition is proof that the public is dissatisfied with the current path. This petition reflects the determination of the people to speak out and assert that they can no longer accept the current situation. It also raises a big question. Where is Keir Starmer, the Labour Party leader? The first of his party since Gordon Brown. Where is he now? While Starmer mocks the leader of the Reform UK party, Nigel Farage, just a week before he spoke at the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, the international community, particularly figures like Elon Musk, could not help but express shock and concern over the political instability in the UK. Musk didn't just share his personal opinion, but highlighted the gravity of the situation. When someone as influential as Musk is paying attention to the UK, it's clear this situation is no longer just a domestic issue but has caught the attention of the world. In the UK, social issues are also adding to the tension. From the justice system to immigration policies and even fake news, all of these are sparking concern among the public. People feel the government is not doing enough to protect their rights. One of the biggest points of contention is the increasing migration, which is putting additional strain on already stretched social resources. The current policy is allowing too many immigrants into the country, putting immense pressure on public services and causing many people to suffer. For many, the issue is not against immigration itself, but about how the country's resources are being allocated to ensure that British citizens are not left behind. What do people think about the issues we have discussed in today's video? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest political developments in the UK. Thank you all and see you in the next videos.
I think somebody in the Treasury got their sums wrong when they were advising the Chancellor Rachel Reeves. You see, the Labour government say it's not a problem. 75% of farms just won't be affected by these new inheritance tax rules. And yet the National Farmers Union themselves say it will be at least 2/3.
Nigel Farage has always been the one to stand up against the Labour government since its early days. Recently, he has once again taken the lead in rallying farmers against Labour's brutal tax assault. The farmers will surely back Farage in this fight. Tune in to watch this dramatic revolt unfold, and don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on the latest political news from Britain. In recent years, property prices have skyrocketed, leading to a rapid rise in land values. Specifically, in Lincolnshire, the price of an acre of land now ranges around £30,000, a significant sum. Notably, many billionaires have found ways to acquire vast agricultural estates with no intention of farming them, simply buying land to avoid inheritance tax. This is not an uncommon occurrence in a society where the wealthy are willing to purchase land just to preserve their assets, with little regard for the reality of life for farmers. However, these decisions are having a direct and negative impact on poor families managing farms whose incomes are incredibly modest and far lower than many might imagine. Despite owning high-value land, their lives are not defined by money. For them, the land is not just an asset, but an integral part of a way of life passed down through generations, a tradition that cannot easily be replaced. It is important to recognise that rural England is not only admired within the country, but is also revered around the world. This land, with its stunning landscapes and unique culture, has always attracted affection from many. One of the reasons why our countryside is so loved is due to the families who have tirelessly protected and nurtured agriculture through the generations, even though their lives have never been easy. Yet, while all of this is under threat, there are individuals like Keir Starmer who, instead of protecting these values, is willing to sell out the future of rural families for the benefit of the wealthy. His proposals, dressed up as reforms or progress, are in fact a political game designed to benefit the rich. Starmer, as a politician, is complicit in a system that only knows how to extract wealth from the poor while erasing a part of the country's history and cultural values. Rather than defending farming families, he is attacking them from every angle, merely to serve the interests of the powerful, those who have seized wealth with no respect for society's core values.
Now, this was far from the first time that I've been out with the rural communities protesting in this country. I was out 20 years ago, protesting against the hunting ban. Indeed, 406,000 of us marched on that countryside march. We weren't listened to by the government.
This no longer seems to matter, because rural constituencies are still in the hands of the Conservative Party, not the Labour Party, and Blair wasn't particularly bothered. But this time, it could be a different story. Nigel Farage joined the march, and he would surely have been pleased with the warm welcome from those waiting at Whitehall. That scene must have filled him with pride. Afterwards, Farage continued his visit to farmers in Essex, where the emotion of the farmers was evident. They were moved to tears as they shared the great fears they face because of the upcoming changes. And this is the reason. The Labour Party currently holds between 70 and 100 seats in rural and semi-rural constituencies. Because of this movement cannot just be focused in London. It needs to spread strongly to towns across the country, especially those where Labour won by a narrow margin in the upcoming general election. For a long time, there has been a lingering sense that a hunting ban would eventually be imposed. And that feeling has grown stronger as it's clear that no one is really listening to those concerns. But this time, things might be different. This feeling also fuels hope that there will be a real change in the current policy approach. Yes, the Prime Minister was interviewed earlier today by Chris Hope from GB News in South America at the G20, but it seems he has no intention of changing his policies at this moment. And perhaps it is this silence that will make people question what exactly this government is doing.
Very important for me to keep making the case that it's only farms and assets over £3 million in a typical case, yes, of parents wanting to pass on to their children, and therefore for that reason I'm confident that the vast majority of farms will not be affected. I grew up in a rural area. I know firsthand that rural areas, farming communities, they do need the investment that we put in the budget.
The question is this just the beginning of a rural uprising? Is it really? The answer lies in the thoughts of the people themselves. Last week, thousands of people across England took to the streets, filled with intense emotions and deep anger. And it wasn't just farmers joining the protests. People from various sectors related to agriculture, along with local residents, were there too. For instance, in my village, even the local pub owners participated in the demonstration. The feeling among the crowd was that this is a direct attack on rural communities. The issue doesn't just end with inheritance tax. There are many other issues at play, especially the changes concerning national insurance. The impact isn't just being felt by small and medium-sized businesses, but also by large companies, particularly those in agriculture. They too are facing significant challenges. Take, for example, one of the country's largest raspberry growers. His payroll bill has soared to £4.2 million, and he doesn't have the funds to pay it. This could force his raspberry growing business to shut down. But the problem is even more complicated. There is no way to import these raspberries from elsewhere. This means we may face a raspberry shortage, which is becoming more and more of a reality. And the issue here isn't just inheritance tax, IHT, but many other factors as well. It's clear that many farmers are unhappy with the rapid development of solar energy, are not in favour of rewilding policies, and are concerned about the government's net zero emissions target. This rebellion is not only happening in England, but is also spreading across Europe, with fierce debates about nitrates, carbon, and other environmental policies. What's striking is the general feeling that, as I've spoken to many people today, an urban elite is setting rules completely detached from the reality of rural life. This is even more apparent with Keir Starmer, who promised to bring about better policies, especially around honesty and transparency. He visited the National Farmers Union and pledged not to implement these policies. He even promised to genuinely empathise with the loss of family farms. Farmers are practical and sincere people. When they promise something, they keep their word. However, Starmer has failed to keep his promise. Instead of clearly stating those commitments in Parliament, he spoke ambiguously in discussions, was inconsistent, and used misleading data that even the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, didn't agree with. These issues were pointed out today, as everyone at the protest raised their hands in opposition, particularly those who know their farms will be directly affected by these policies. In my village, the house at the end of the street was recently sold for £1.5 million, despite being only a quarter of an acre. This shows that land and property values are incredibly sensitive and personal issues for farmers. These farmers work day in, day out, 7 days a week under the sun, tending livestock, only to be betrayed by the Labour Party. They promise to be the farmers' friends, but in reality, they repay them with policies that harm them. The lies keep being repeated, and we are the ones who bear the brunt. The situation is worsened by the government's refusal to listen. There are many agricultural accountants and experienced experts, yet they are ignored. The government only relies on faulty Treasury figures, with no regard for the real issue of food security. People need food, that is a given.